My parents planned the move carefully so that it would align with the start of the school year for both my sister and me. She was 3 years younger than I was and attended a public school. I, on the other hand, was about to enter grade 9, my first year of high school. The timing made the transition feel intentional and orderly, as though this new chapter in our lives was beginning right on schedule. We lived in a small town, and the two of us were bused to school each day. My sister's ride was easy, a direct 15-minute trip straight to her school. Mine, on the other hand, was a 45-minute exercise in patience, spent winding through the countryside to pick up every student who lived on a farm or rural road before finally dropping us off at the high school. The school itself sat on the very edge of the city, making the long ride feel even longer. At lunchtime, I went outside to the designated smoking area and had a cigarette. It was a small, unremarkable space tucked beside the parking lot, with the football field stretching out behind the school. There was only one picnic table, and that was the extent of the seating. I later discovered that most of the smokers preferred to walk across the parking lot and sit on a gentle rise of a hill instead. But this was my first day, and I didn't know any of that yet. So there I was, perched on top of the picnic table with a small group of students my own age, all in the same grade as me, trying to look like I belonged. We made polite small talk about our classes and teachers, and about where all the rooms were located in the two-story school. When we had finished our break, everyone headed back inside to settle more comfortably in the courtyard at the center of the building. I lingered outside for a few moments longer, looking around and taking in the view, trying to fix everything in my mind. I wanted to remember how the school was laid out and where each hallway and classroom led. I'm sure you remember your own first day of high school, how unfamiliar everything felt, and how difficult it was at first to remember where everything was and how to get from one place to another. Just as I was about to stand and head back inside, a girl stepped out and took a seat on the top of the picnic table beside me. The moment felt casual and unplanned, yet it caught my attention and quietly shifted the mood, turning what had been a passing pause into something unexpectedly memorable. My initial impression of her was that she resembled a more rugged, tomboyish version of the average teenager. Her dirty blonde hair was cut short and wildly unkempt. It looked, as my mother would have said, as though a hurricane had swept through it. A scattering of freckles dotted her face, few in number and faintly visible. She wore no makeup at all, giving her a natural, unpolished appearance. Her face appeared slightly smudged, making it difficult at first glance to distinguish between freckles and the traces of an active day outdoors. A school football jersey hung loosely over her upper body. It was at least 2 sizes too large, trimmed in the school colors and a muted shade of white. Despite its size, it didn't quite conceal her figure. For a moment, my attention lingered there, and everything else seemed to blur into the background. She wore straight-cut blue jeans, not tapered, along with black socks and well-worn black athletic shoes. I tried to take in the rest of her appearance, but my gaze kept drifting back, almost unconsciously, before I caught myself and forced my focus outward again. She caught me staring and fixed me with a firm, unmistakable look. "It's not polite to stare, you know," she said quietly, her voice low but steady. The words landed with more weight than if she had spoken loudly, and I felt a sudden flush of embarrassment. I looked away at once, aware that I had crossed an unspoken line and been called out for it. I looked away as she flicked the cigarette from her hand. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. After a moment, I risked another glance at her face, trying to judge just how upset she might be. I expected to see a sharp frown or a look of irritation. Instead, she wore a small smile, tight and slightly grim, as though it carried more meaning than amusement. "What exactly did you find so interesting that you felt the need to stare?" she asked. Caught off guard, I felt my face heat up as I searched for an answer. After a moment, I managed a weak reply. "Your football jersey." There was a brief pause. "What about it?" she asked. Her voice remained low and controlled, but now there was an unmistakable edge to it, something sharp beneath the calm that made it clear I had crossed a line. I was completely at a loss for words, an experience entirely unfamiliar to me. I searched desperately for a response, forming and discarding one thought after another, but nothing seemed suitable. Every option felt inadequate, incapable of easing her displeasure. With no better alternative, I chose honesty. My mother had always told me that when all other choices fail, the truth is the best one to fall back on. Well, it really doesn't do you any favors, I said at last. Her eyes flashed instantly, her expression darkening. What? What do you mean by that? She demanded. Panicking, I rushed to explain. I just mean it's too big on you, and it hides how nice you look. She stared at me in disbelief, clearly stunned. Excuse me? What exactly are you trying to say? I mean your figure, I corrected myself quickly. I'm sure it's very attractive, and I think it would be shown to better advantage if you were wearing something a little more fitted, something that suited you and highlighted your natural shape more clearly. I wasn't sure there was anything short of a complete transformation that could make her look better than she did in that moment, but I knew I was treading on extremely fragile ground. She looked straight at me, her expression still dark for what felt like an eternity, though I'm certain it was only a few seconds. I met her gaze and held it, unwilling to retreat after having committed myself with such bold words. Then, slowly, something happened, something I can still remember vividly to this day. A small smile began to form at the corners of her mouth. It crept across her face with quiet hesitation, as if testing the moment. Watching it was like witnessing a sunrise. The smile softened her hardened expression, and the grim lines around her eyes gradually faded away, replaced by warmth and light. You're kind of cute, you know that? Now I was the one left speechless, sputtering as my face flushed with heat. I dropped my gaze straight to my feet, suddenly finding them far more interesting than anything else. This was, without question, the longest conversation I had ever had with a girl who wasn't related to me, and I could feel the blush spreading uncontrollably across my face. I never expected her to say something like that. I had no idea what I thought she might say, but it certainly wasn't that. She slipped her fingers beneath my chin and gently lifted my face until our eyes were level. Studying me closely, she asked, a hint of amusement in her voice, "You're not shy, are you? You certainly seem shy. How can you be shy after making a comment about my appearance like that?" I looked at her face again. It was closer now, close enough that I could clearly see the mischief dancing in her eyes as her smile slowly widened. I had no answer for her, no words at all. I had never felt anything like this before, and I wasn't sure how to respond. From this angle, I also noticed something else. She looked far less like a boy than I had first thought, and far more like someone who had suddenly captured my full attention. "Come with me," she said, taking my hand and pulling me off the table. I had no choice but to follow, stumbling along behind her. "Where?" I managed to squeak out. "Shush," she whispered, turning back and pressing a finger to her lips in the universal signal for silence. It was only then that I realized how strong she was. She had no difficulty at all tugging me along in her wake. Seeing her from behind as she led me along altered my initial impression of her build. Although she was larger than I was, she was also well proportioned and carried herself with confidence. The oversized jersey did her no favors, concealing most of her back and doing little to complement her shape. Still, as it shifted with her movement, I could make out the curve of her figure and the line of her hips beneath it. From what little I could see, it was clear that she was physically impressive, and I found myself quietly admiring the view. We walked along the side of the school toward the football field, then made a quick right turn at the rear of the building. About 10 yards ahead stood a small shed, tucked away in the deep shadow cast by the school itself. She paused and carefully scanned the area, and once she was satisfied that no one was watching, she guided me toward a narrow door set into the side of the structure. She eased it open just enough to usher me inside, then followed close behind. The door was pulled shut quietly and secured in place, leaving us alone in the dim, enclosed space. The small shed was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from a weak light bulb mounted high on the wall. It cast long, muted shadows across the cramped space. As I glanced around, I noticed several pieces of old football equipment resting on a narrow bench, all of it coated in a thick layer of dust that hinted at long neglect. She swept the pile of items from the bench and guided me down onto it. Then she settled herself on the edge of the seat and gently turned me so that I was facing her. "So," she said lightly, a hint of teasing in her voice, "you really think I look good, do you?" Even in the dim light of the shed, I was certain I could see a playful sparkle in her eyes. "I'm sure they are," I began, choosing my words carefully. "Even with that oversized football jersey, it's obvious that you're well built." She tilted her head slightly, studying me with that same unreadable look in her eyes. For a moment, she said nothing at all, as if weighing my words and deciding what to make of them. After a brief pause, she seemed to reach a conclusion. Straightening again, she fixed her gaze on me, looking directly into my eyes. "Would you like to see?" she asked softly, her voice calm and without any hint of threat. "Yes, please," I replied, my answer coming more quickly than I expected. Inside, my thoughts raced, but I kept them firmly to myself. That seemed to satisfy her. She smiled once more, then lifted the oversized jersey up and over her head, setting it carefully on the bench behind her.